Man, did they build a company. There's been a breakup. We'll find out what happened. Welcome to My State of Mind. I am Dan Yorke. It's a pleasure and honor to have you in each and every night. Tonight, different kind of program. Giovanni Feroce will be my guest. He is no stranger to Rhode Island, and of course he has built, along with his partner Carol Rafilian, a huge success story in Rhode Island with Alex and Ani. Is there anybody who doesn't know what Alex and Ani, they're two girls, by the way. The name rolls off our tongues so quickly that we forget that sometimes, but what a huge rise to meteoric success. And now there's a rift and a problem, and he's leaving, and I think we should find out what's going on. So he is here, and he'll tell us as much as he possibly can, I think, about what the ongoing discussions are at that incredible company in Rhode Island success story. So do not go away. Let us go to the rundown and find out what is happening today. This couldn't be bigger. Dan, don't yell on TV. But this is huge. This is also a big decision that I think has a lot of people, A, confused, and B, upset. But when you take a look at it, maybe not so bad. This one is the president more or less claiming that the whole conversation about health care is over. I think not, Mr. President. And, you know, we've got a little bit of competition perhaps in the 1st District congressional race coming up, which I think is always a good thing. Not just one potential candidate, but a bunch. All right, let's start and find out what we got going on. This is, I can't tell you how huge this is. You know that so many nights I've come here on the television now in our now 7th month of the program, and thanks for watching and spreading the word. And of course, for years on the radio, especially since 2010, where I have been just apoplectic over the idea that the state legislature on a hot summer night in June of 2010 decided to pass a $125 million loan guarantee for the 38 studios funding. Although they didn't know they were passing it for 38 studios, they just thought they were building an overall enterprise for Rhode Island government to access, you know, kind of like how you co-sign your kid's car loan. Well, it's turned out to be a lot more than that, hasn't it? And I've been asking for transparency, and I've been asking for the legislature and the House specifically to police itself and go back and find out how in heaven's name they could have voted on something that they didn't know what was in the hopper. You know what I mean? House Speaker Nick Mattiello was with me here 2 nights ago, and I was pressing him on this, and he was like, calm down, let's wait for depositions. Here's what he had to say.
I believe that in the near future the depositions are probably going to be unsealed, and because there's an open records request for them. Let's see what the depositions disclose, and then we'll take it from there.
So what the representative and now House Speaker is saying is that, look, the litigation that the administration, the Chafee administration, has for the 38 Studios conversation is dragging people into depositions. You know what depositions are, right? Where lawyers ask people questions, and it's been sealed. And so the media, specifically I think the Journal, has been pursuing an opening of those depositions, and there's a court hearing on April 11th. Okay, so if the depositions come out, maybe we learn all about who did what. Maybe we don't. Perhaps they're redacted. So I've been pushing like crazy, Nick Mattiello and others, for the idea that we ought to have subpoena power in the House Oversight Committee, which has been operating under the former state representative Mike Marcello, who ran for the House Speaker and lost, but it hasn't talked to anybody. It's just been piling the paper this high. Well, here's the headline today. Repayment Fo will chair the oversight panel. That oversight panel will be chaired by Karen Macbeth, who is a state representative from Cumberland and who has been angry about this from June 2010 at the get-go. She was on the radio with me today on WPRO, noon to 3 weekdays, and here's what she had to say about where she wants the subpoenas and how they're going to be effective.
The subpoenas would go to the Speaker, or the Speaker can delegate that to sign off on these subpoenas. And it can be for, of course, the former Speaker, the former Governor, the former Finance Chair, members of the EDC, prime sponsors of the legislation, anybody that can give us answers.
The thing here is that Nick Mattiello, the Speaker of the House, has got to approve the issuance of subpoenas. He's hedging his bets, but let me say this. I want to be clear, because I gave him a really hard time Monday night. This is a good decision by the House Speaker, and it shows me that he kind of gets it. So congratulations to him on leaning in the right direction, and it's a big doggone deal. All right, in Washington, big decision from the Supreme Court today on the money. Here's the headline. They're striking down limits on federal campaign donations. Now, it's got a lot of people, including the minority, 4 judges. It was a 5-4 decision, including the minority, very, very, very upset with this. Look at this comment from Justice Breyer. Today's decision, we fear, will open a floodgate where money calls the tune. Those ideas representing the voice of the people will not be heard. Well, I'm not so sure about that. Here's where the limits are on this whole thing. Understand, everybody's got a cap of giving to federal candidates $2,600 in any campaign cycle, any campaign year, right? That hasn't been increased. The case was about a guy who had given 15 different candidates $1,776. Get it? $1,776. He wanted to give another 12 that amount of money, but his problem was he had reached his overall cap of contribution, which is sealed at $123,000 a year between party and person. You following all that? I was going to give you a graphic, but I figured I'd just talk you through it. What this does is say, you know what? Don't worry about that big overall cap. Spread it out as many times as you want to individuals, but no more than that $2,600 a piece. Now, between the decision by the Supreme Court a few years ago that just blew open the super PAC stuff, you know what that was called. I'm having a brain spasm here. Watch this. See what I do? I go and I actually look at a note. Sometimes I write notes. Citizens Unlimited. See? I'm prepared. Citizens Unlimited took the cap off of super PAC donations, which is a whole nother conversation. But this gives you the freedom to give more people money. And of course, the more money you have, the more influence that you will have. There's the crux. Next item. The debate is over, according to the president, you'd think. I mean, he more or less called the shots. He did all but just slam the football in the end zone yesterday when it came to the 7.1 million that signed up for Obamacare on the deadline. The headline here is that very thing, right? And so he's in the Rose Garden having himself a good old time, more or less telling everybody how they got to write the story now.
President Obama made clear today he now has more than 7 million reasons and counting to celebrate.
The Affordable Care Act hasn't completely fixed our long broken health care system, but this law has made our health care system a lot better. A lot better.
It was a pep rally as much as a victory lap, as Democrats patted themselves on the back and the president slammed Republicans and urged the media to move along from the negative stories.
So press, I want you to anticipate, there will be some moment when the website's down, and I know it'll be on all your front pages. It's going to happen.
Yeah, Mr. President, respectfully, that's got to be one of the dumbest things you've ever said. To project technical problems still with the website and to have that kind of low bar expectation for the performance of this plan is miserably embarrassing. Here's the thing. We don't know how many actual new enrollees there are that didn't have health insurance prior. That data's not out yet. We don't know how many of these plans are actually going to be effective and people are actually going to be insured. That will happen when they go see the doctor. We already know that the really well-working Health Source Rhode Island has had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who are on and off and on and off and being driven crazy by the computers going wacky. This thing is not smooth by any stretch of the imagination. And by the way, it's not lowering costs overall. For some, yes, but if you make any money, you're screwed. So stay tuned. Mr. President, I wouldn't spike the ball just yet. And finally, competition is good, don't you think? Headline here, I told you about this yesterday. John Laughlin, who ran in 2010 against David Cicilline and lost by just 6 points. He's pictured here. He's got, he said he lost 60 pounds in that race, walking the district. He worked pretty hard. Well, he also has some competition if he decides to get into this race, and he said he'll decide by the end of this week. Here are some names, according to the story today. David Cicilline, of course, is the incumbent, a guy by the name of Matt Fecto, and a guy by the name of Cormac Lynch, both former military. So anytime former military get involved, you got to respect what they're thinking. And then a guy by the name of Stan Tran, who's got his own perspective. So John Laughlin, if he gets into that group, will have some traffic. And David Cicilline can't be so cocky about re-election. It's good. It's good for all of us. When we come back, Alexani. It's a great story. A little turbulence right now. Stay with us. The famous headquarters of Alexani in Cranston a company that I think has really captured the hearts and minds of a lot of folks here in Rhode Island, and then all of a sudden, poof, we get this headline the other day, which kind of went like, what? Here's what WPRI.com reported, along with everybody else. Giovanni Feroce out as Alexani's CEO. That was shocking, I think, to a lot of people. Nobody saw it coming. Not that everyone's, in the boardroom in the conference room every day. Welcome to the program. Nice to have you.
Thank you for having me.
It's great. By the way, full disclosure, Giovanni and I actually did some business through my company only in the last month or so. As Alexani sponsored my production of high school basketball games. That's nothing to do with this conversation, but in case anybody's wondering, yeah, we've done a little business, and of course, I've endorsed Alexani through radio ads and the like, and so we're very familiar with each other. And I think everyone's been kind of involved with kind of a Rhode Island romance business story in a lot of ways, right? So before we go into the what the hell happened, let's talk about the good stuff. How did this company exploded?
Well, a lot of work. So, I'm obviously honored that, the support of the community, the consumer, got behind the company the way it did. But it was built by design. We decided we wanted a Rhode Island company, wanted a made in America product, wanted to have environmentally, sound practices, and to give back. And so, very proud to have accomplished that and continue to accomplish that. So the company's on good footing. It has the right, values when it comes to how it looks at, the bottom line, as long as it continues to incorporate those things.
And speaking of the bottom line, just throw this up, Steve, real quick. I mean, take a look at, when Carol Orfilli and his partner had the thing purn a little bit in 2010, 23 employees and $4.5 million in gross. 5 years later, 1,084 employees and $230 million in gross. You're in 40 markets. I mean, that is something that's gotten the recognition of business trades all across America.
Yeah, it's a great story. It's and that's the beauty, is that it is a national and international story. So, the world of high finance certainly recognized what was going on. That is always a good thing for the long haul.
Who came up with the idea? I didn't follow this very closely when Ms. Refalian had the company on her own. You're talking about jewelry. Now listen, I wouldn't know mostly women's jewelry if it hit me in the head, right? So my daughter loves the stuff, my wife loves the stuff. I look at it and say, really? And all these, I can remember a couple of Christmas gifts ago where some of my sisters who got gifts from my daughter on themes, right? Themes with the jewelry would get misty.
Sure.
I mean, you captured, was it more smoke and mirrors than substance in terms of, or is it in terms of just the emotional, psychological product that you wrapped around jewelry?
Well, people go through things in life. Some are positive, some are negative. Combination of both in the same day, whatever you have going on. What the product, does for people is it gives them just a moment to reflect upon whatever it is, positive or negative, and what they purchase, how they purchase it, the timing, all of that. That's personal. Only they know.
Did that whole story though behind the product develop when you came on board? Was it Carol's creative thought process? Tell me.
Carolyn, absolutely designed the product, and she
and
did,
the concept of all of the
Yeah.
feeling and the positive energy and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, the thing that I think I added was that I had her focus on what the real story is. In other words, that's what you want to tell the consumer. So if you're positioned only as a jewelry company or only as some ad that anybody can take a picture of and put on in a magazine, that's not how to sell it. So you needed to tell the story, and so we put efforts in place through obviously the marketing, but also the storytelling on an individual level, myself leading the way and everyone else in the company, to be able to ensure that the consumer, when they were in the store or had an experience online, they were understanding what they were doing. And a lot of that might sound general in nature, but they're very important efforts.
Well, obviously it caused incredible growth. Give me 30 seconds on how the heck you grow it from small local to 40 markets where you find stores all over Kingdom Come.
Yeah, well, for every action there's a reaction. So I always, explain to people you have to do the backwards planning. So being a military guy, I understand backwards planning, And it all comes down to what's the objective. So how large of a company did we want? That's the first question. And then how do you get there? You know, and then the timing and
Did you know
all
you
of
wanted
that.
a company this large?
Absolutely. It's by design. And so that's why it's kind of, you know, for me when I follow, you know, some of the critics, let's say, or whatever you call them, at the end of the day, they just don't understand that that's how it works. It's
Because
by
many
design.
people would say, these guys are out of control. They're going
Yeah,
so
they
big.
have no idea.
That was the plan.
Correct. There are room for brands in the United States. I would challenge you, obviously an extremely intelligent guy, as are the people watching. They, you know, they will struggle to name brands after 6 or 7. I mean, the country just lost them.
Right.
So, you know, and that's all that I believe is you know, the opportunity that needs to be focused on.
And this brand thing, I think, might be at the crux of how this thing has gotten a little turbulent here. We'll talk about that when we come back. Again, if you have to recognize the headquarters there, and of course that's what it looks like on the inside at the Alexani headquarters in Cranston. Of course, that's kind of an integral thing, you know, Cranston, Rhode Island, headquarters. Of course, there's a shot from Gio at another on another broadcast, I believe on Ted Nisi's executive suite. Giovanni Feroce is my guest. Here was the next headline, though, that kind of blew everybody away this week. You know, he cites tensions over expansion. So you sat with the newspaper, you talked about some things honestly. I'm here now to ask you to elaborate a little bit on that. What happened?
Okay, well, you know, before I get into that, if you don't mind, you know, we are still in talks, so, you know, I'm going to have to limit a lot of what I'm going to say. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's, you know, when one reflects, it's, life is always twists and turns, and, you know, there are times when it's the right thing to be in a certain position, and other times when you might have to take a stand on certain things. And so I don't look at it as really a negative thing. I for lack of a better term, find it very liberating. You know, I mean, I worked 20 hours a day for, you know, 4.5 years here of nonstop, and, you know, my life was the company, because, you know, I can be with my kids at Disney World, and it doesn't matter. I'm on the phone, and I have to hear everyone yell at me for being on the phone. But, you know, I have 1,000 jobs to take care of, and so it's one of those things. When it's entrepreneurial and it's homegrown, it's, you know, for me, just a sad thing to have, you know, outside influence suggest that you have to do everything in, you know, in New York, or go get this other thing, or hire
And
these people.
The growth requires, you know, a bigger board, I'm guessing, right? And input happens. Did you and Carol just have a disagreement about what the next? Had you reached with this growth that we just cited? Had you reached stage 1 of this big plan, or where were you in the middle of this projected growth plan? Was this kind of an interval that we're at right now, or where were we?
It's an interesting question. I think that the reality is you have a lot of white space in the United States, and really internationally as well. So in category, in what we had most of the revenue generate from, there's still a long way to go. And so, you know, one can you know, experience what Providence did in Des Moines, Iowa 2 years from now. You know, and I think that's hopefully what will happen. But, you know, as far as other things, I like to see other things. I like to see them quickly. I believe we have a lot of plug and play type opportunities that one can add to the organization. But it comes down, you know, it's philosophies.
Expanding the product and brand. Is that what you're talking about?
Sure. I think,
And
you
was
know,
there disagreement over that actual growth plan? Is that really more or less what's happened here?
you know, having worked at a strategic combatant command, you know, again, I can look at things and not say it's one event or one, you know, negative this or that. It's just, you know, it's at that point. It gets to that point. You have to look at the strategy. Hey, you know, you can stay in Iraq, you can leave, you can do whatever you want to do. You know, in the military, you get to a certain decision point. You have to look at the length of time you've been involved. You have to look at what, you know, the objectives were. So in this case, it's just that, you know, sort of situation.
So let me ask, and people are going to want this question answered.
Sure.
Who left who? Did they fire you? Did you leave? What's the definition of the termination or the separation?
Well, I think, and this is going to sound odd, but it's reality. That has not been determined.
Still,
this
you're
is
still talking.
We're talking.
And
I
you're
mean,
on the
that's
board.
What
You're on the board
hopefully,
still?
I believe I am. Yes.
Yeah.
So
and you still got a piece.
I am a shareholder of the company.
All
Yes.
right. And this lawsuit that this general counsel Rob Rainville brought, alleging that you're partying your what's off and having a good time and being miserable and irresponsible, you say what to that?
You know, those kinds of things are just so odd for me to respond to, because everybody has their own life and they live it the way they want to live it. And so for me, it's kind of very odd to have somebody who's a best friend, so to speak, think that, you know, you can leverage anything on somebody, and, you know, it doesn't make any sense. I'm an open book. People have known me for 45 years. You can find me in West York, and you can find me in the Army, and you can find me here. I mean, it is what it is.
What's next for you?
I'm very excited. I mean, I'm looking at, obviously, a lot of opportunities from LA to New York, and I'm hoping that, and I think I found it, frankly. I'm hoping to be able to get something and bring it here to Rhode Island, and really just continue the job creation. I always felt I had one job, and that was to create jobs.
Last question. Will Alexani remain headquartered in Rhode Island? What do you think?
I hope so. I mean, it'd be foolish to move it, in my opinion.
Was that part of your worry?
There's always concern. You know, there's always concern, but for me, Rhode Island is a competitive advantage. We have the industry in that particular category. The rents here are not New York rents, and, you know, the workforce is a great workforce.
Come back when you know.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. We'll wrap up when we come back to it. This is how you get in touch with the show. Give us a voicemail or an email, and we have a voicemail here that I thought was kind of nice.
I just wish we had Dan as our politician. I love his manner, the way he handles things. He's so honest, down to earth. I can't say enough about the show.
Oh, Aunt Dorothy, thank you very much. Every once in a while, we like to put a nice thing up there. You made my night. We'll see you tomorrow, 7:30 on MyRI TV. Have a great night.